Okay, we are waiting for the audio of this. I am told that I now have the transcript. Buck, I'm going to do a bit of a dramatic reading here of just what happened in the Oval Office. Uh, JD Vance, who was also at the meeting, Vice President JD Vance, said it was, quote, disrespectful for Zelensky to come in the Oval Office and litigate in front of the American media, and said he does this all the time on publicity tours. Trump raised his voice and said to Zelensky, you're not really in a good position right now. You're gambling with World War III. JD Vance then said, have you said thank you once? You went to Pennsylvania to campaign for the opposition. Trump followed, you're running low on soldiers. Then you're telling us you don't want a ceasefire. Zelensky is trying to respond. This is according to the LA Times. This is spicy, Buck, relatively speaking, to what usually happens when the media is invited in to see a foreign dignitary visiting. Usually everybody plays nice. It does not appear that everybody is playing nice here.
What is Zelensky's plan other than to just keep on hanging out with celebrities and assuming that the American taxpayer is going to send him hundreds of billions of dollars for this war, which I think we honestly don't get anything from? We are helping people because America has decided that Russia is the bad guy and Ukraine is the good guy. And yeah, is it Russia's fault that this war happened? Yes, they started the war. Were there things that were done by NATO before, or rather, encroachments by NATO beforehand and provocations by Biden specifically that did not help the situation in advance? Yeah, that's also true. But we just want this thing to stop. We want to stop sending money. We want people to stop getting blown up and killed and shot and all these horrible things that are happening on a massive scale on this battlefront. What is Zelensky's plan? If he doesn't want to go into a negotiation, Putin already knows. People are saying, "Oh, Trump is undermining Putin's hand." I mean, Zelensky's hand. Putin knows the battlefield reality better than we do. He knows he's got more men, he knows he's got more material, and he knows that Russia is actually slowly advancing in this situation. And so, what's Zelensky's plan? To bluff? He's gonna. The only options are status quo, Clay, which is meat grinder for Ukrainians, Americans funding this whole operation, or Zelensky thinks that some way he'll be able to get us to just step in. And now it's America squaring off against Russia on the battlefield directly. I don't see what because negotiation and ceasefire and ending this thing sets him off. Apparently, he doesn't want to do that.
I do think that it's under discussed, and I give credit to JD Vance for pointing this out. The guy went to the battleground state of Pennsylvania to campaign for Kamala Harris. We talk a lot about foreign interference in elections. Can you recall that having happened, Buck, where a foreign leader comes to the United States in the middle of an election, goes to a battleground state, and campaigns for one side against the other, and then shows up in the White House after the side he campaigned against won, the side he campaigned for lost, and tries to argue that they owe him something? I mean, again, strip aside, I like to do this, and I know some of you don't necessarily love it, but strip aside whatever political affiliations you have right now for a moment. Just consider this blindly. If we're going to hear that Russia completely elected Donald Trump based on a few $100,000 in Facebook ads. That is the entire argument of Russia collusion when it boils down. Russia was playing around on Facebook. They bought, I don't know, $150,000, I think, of Facebook ads, which, let me tell you, is virtually nothing, especially in an election where billions of dollars are being spent. I went and looked at those elections. We have bought Facebook ads. I can tell you that $150,000 in Facebook ads does not get you in front of very many people, okay? But if we are being told that Russia buying those ads swung the 2016 election, Zelensky actually traveled to America and campaigned against Trump and Vance in Pennsylvania what most people would have acknowledged to be the biggest battleground state in the entire United States. So this idea that somehow this is not direct election interference from a foreign official is kind of wild to me. I remember we talked about it when it happened on this program, and I said at the time, like, this is direct attempt to influence election by Zelensky.
I always thought this formulation was so dishonest. This thing about Democrats, oh, people are trying to influence our elections. This has been going on forever. We try to influence elections all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many elections do you think we try to influence that are going on?
I was in the CIA, and I'm familiar with the history of that organization. Let me tell you, there's been a lot of influencing of elections in our past, and maybe more, who knows, that has gone on all over the world. I mean, the whole Cold War was basically us picking proxies and the Soviets picking proxies to try to influence power in elections in foreign countries. This was like top of our foreign policy priority for decades. So this notion, yes, is it a problem if Russia tries to break into our voting machines and change them? Yeah, that didn't happen. Although a lot of Democrats think it did. That's breaking laws and things that we have to take seriously. I mean, you could even argue that's an act of war, but Facebook ads? World leaders saying, I think you should vote for this person, not that person, Americans or Russians or whoever we're talking about. We're in a global information ecosystem. The idea that there aren't efforts to influence elections, at least by people sharing their opinions, whether it's a world leader or a foreign media entity or whatever, this is farcical. This is absurd.
Yes.
But this is where you get to Democrats saying they bought Facebook ads saying mean things about Hillary. There were billions of dollars spent on ads in that election. $100,000? If you're going to lose an election because of $100,000 on Facebook, you didn't deserve to win in the first place. The whole thing is absurd.
Also, that's the greatest ad spend in the history of mankind. I'm just telling you, $100,000 in Facebook ads during the gambling era with Outkick, we would buy Facebook ads to try to get people to sign up for gambling through Outkick codes. I mean, that's one of the parts of our business that we were running as a media business. $100,000 is a blip in the radar of Facebook's overall advertising. So what happened here with Zelensky traveling and campaigning, I think J.D. Vance is actually very right to call him out. We are in the process, by the way, of putting the audio of the transcript that I read to you in, and I would imagine we will have this soon. Again, Zelensky in the White House being confronted in real time about exactly what is going on.
Also, he does not come across as grateful at all. I will just point that out. It's always, give us everything that we want, give us all of this money, American taxpayer, or else the fact that we're going to get our asses kicked by the Russians even more is your fault. The whole thing is effectively built on a kind of moral blackmail. You have to keep funding this. The American taxpayer has to keep funding the Ukraine war, or else if Russia runs over them, it is our fault. So, yeah, that's I think something that people have grown, Clay, very tired of in this country. And a lot of Democrats for whom the virtue signaling of a Ukraine flag on their Facebook page or on their X profile, that's their involvement in this war. And just like everything else, spending money that they don't think of as theirs because it's the taxpayers and giving it to Ukraine makes them feel good about themselves. But the real nuts and bolts of what is happening in this conflict shows us that Zelensky there's no plan here. And as we saw, whether it was the U.S. and NATO in Afghanistan, a whole bunch of other wars we could point to, when you have no plan other than I'm going to send people who are just serving their country to go out there and get shot at and possibly killed, this is a deeply immoral thing to perpetuate if it's just, I want the status quo because I don't want to accept that we can't get everything that we want as, the Ukrainians.
Sorry, I'm just looking at some of the pictures. The Ukrainian ambassador has her head in her hands over the audio that we're about to play for you in front of all the media. This is going to be a big deal. Here is now cut 29. More of, again, this is in the Oval Office, J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, and Zelensky talking about whether this mineral rights deal is actually going to happen.
It's
Listen.
going to be a very hard thing to do business like this, I tell you.
Just say thank you.
I said a lot of times thank you to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on out here. I think it's very important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running
I
low
know.
on soldiers.
Don't, please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then
President.
then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I wanted this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Okay. Woo. Let's dive in. Buck out getting ready for the new baby for the remainder of today's show. He had to duck out. A lot of family. We'll take some of your calls, by the way, 800-282-2882. Here is how I would analyze what we just saw in the Oval Office. Trump is laying out for everyone there to see, not only in the United States and all of us, but everyone around the world, what is, I think, the single most important detail of the situation with Russia and Ukraine right now. And it is this: Ukraine cannot win. Once you know that you cannot win, the only question is, how does this end? Many of you out there have been sold a bill of goods that Ukraine was going to win this war, that it was going to lead to Vladimir Putin getting removed from power, that Russia was going to crumble. None of that is true. Okay? Disabuse yourselves of that notion. Ukraine is going to lose. Russia has more men. They have more materials. They have the ability and the willingness, it appears, to deal with casualties for a far longer time than Ukraine and Zelensky do. Once you know the number one takeaway here, which is Ukraine can't win, where Trump has moved is he's moved to, okay, let's end the war, let's have a ceasefire, let's just have a negotiated peace. At this point in time, all we're talking about is, where is the boundary line going to be drawn between Ukraine and Russia? That is the number one question. The secondary question, I would say, is how do we ensure that Russia doesn't decide to do this again? That's the secondary question. To me, the answer to the first question is the entire purpose of the negotiation. Where's the squiggly line going to be drawn to set the border between Ukraine and Russia? That's all that remains to be decided. Second one is, how do we create a lasting peace in Ukraine such that Russia doesn't decide to invade again? Really, the second part of those questions is the most important one to analyze here. My suggestion, based on everything that I have read, is it appears to be the plan that Europe would commit many different soldiers, many different countries would be sending peacekeepers to Ukraine. The United States would not be doing that. Instead, we would be signing this mineral rights deal, which creates 50% basically of the profits for the Ukrainian minerals for the American taxpayer as a way to pay us back for the hundreds of billions of dollars that we have given to Ukraine. That's really what's at stake here. And what Trump is doing is one of the things that I would say Trump has proven is a successful mechanism for him in his political career. He's not behaving differently in public versus private. He's basically saying to Zelensky in public the same thing that he would say in private. Now, what I don't know, and I think it's hard to analyze from a negotiating perspective, is how does Zelensky handle this slapdown in public in the Oval Office? Does he pout? Does he take it entirely on a personal level? Or does he man up and recognize that one of the reasons why I think this is necessary is Trump is playing both directions, and he said it directly, and a lot of people are going to overlook it. You can't get a negotiated peace by and large when you are telling one side you're evil and the other side you're good. Because negotiated peace doesn't work when you are allowing the framework to be Ukraine is all good, Russia is all evil. It's really hard to come to a negotiated settlement with good and evil. So what Trump has tried to do is he has tried to move in the direction sometimes of Vladimir Putin, sometimes swing back in the direction of Ukraine. This is how negotiations generally work. Some of you out there listening will have been involved in negotiations before. What I would basically characterize Trump as right now is a mediator. Some of you have probably been involved in mediation. The way mediation works is typically one side sits in one room, the other side sits in the other room. They often have their own lawyers and their own legal team. And then the mediator, who is a default judge, physically, usually, will walk from one room to another and have a conversation to try to bring the two sides together. I've been involved in a decent number of mediations over the years. Any good mediator understands that in order to solve a conflict, which is what we are doing here, in order to solve an adversarial relationship, it can be a divorce proceeding, it can be a company dispute, it can be a dispute between multiple businesses, individuals. You don't go into the mediating room back and forth and say, you know what, you're right, the other side is evil. Because the team that you're negotiating with is going to say, yeah, I should get everything then. They're evil. And you don't go in on the other side and say, hey, you know what? This team, they are 100% good. You have to work both sides of the negotiating table. And I can already tell you how this is going to play in the media. They're going to say, oh my goodness, how could we allow this to happen? It's so incredibly disrespectful. I don't buy into that because I don't buy into the idea that there should be tremendous difference between what a politician says and does in public and private. Sometimes, yes. Some things you don't want to be public. But here, I think Trump made the calculated decision, along with J.D. Vance, that they needed the American people to understand that the fiction they have been told that Ukraine's going to win this war and they're going to kick Russia's butt and they're going to send Russia back and Vladimir Putin's going to step down and everything's going to fall apart because he invaded Ukraine. That's not going to happen. To the extent that there was ever a possibility that Ukraine could win this war, and I question that, it has never in the last year or so been an active reality. So if you know Ukraine can't win, and you know that hundreds of thousands of men are getting killed, and effectively you have created a stalemate, a modern-day Maginot Line, for those of you who are history nerds, and it's only going to be moving at small segments because you effectively have these huge drawn lines with the no man's land in between. If that's the reality where you have reached yourself, then most rational people would say, okay, let's find a way to get a solution here. What stops the solution from happening? Frankly, a lot of people out there are engaging in the magical fantasy that Ukraine was going to beat Russia. And a lot of Democrats have been told that. A lot of them have bought into the idea, oh, Zelensky is a modern-day Winston Churchill. He's a hero. He's going to beat back Vladimir Putin, who's a modern-day Nazi. Let me just say this. Maybe read a few more history books. If every single historical analogy you draw involves Hitler and the Nazis, maybe realize that world history didn't start 80 years ago. that there are other aspects of history you could point to, because one of the things that left-wingers tried to tell you, which is 100% a lie, is they said once Vladimir Putin takes Ukraine, well, then he's going to take Poland, or then he's going to take some other Eastern European country. No, he's not. He doesn't have the ability to do that. He doesn't even have the ability to take all of Ukraine. Russia is not some incredibly strong military. Ukraine, to their credit, has a lot of brave soldiers that have fought, to a large extent, Russia to a draw, but it is now clear they cannot win. And even Russia now is throwing North Korean soldiers into the mix. They've got mercenary soldiers everywhere. And so, to me, the only solution here, which is what Trump just said publicly, is for there to be peace. Now, when we go to break, I'm going to go in and see what the absolute latest is, because my one question about the fiery exchange we just heard in the Oval Office is, does Zelensky take it all personally and make a decision that is irrational, rooted in emotion, and not in logic? Or does Trump's public pronouncement here hasten what he's calling for, which is an immediate ceasefire? Because if you can't win, all you have to negotiate are the two things I laid out. Where's the squiggly line, most of which no American could actually tell the difference in the first place? I question whether the majority of Americans could even point to Ukraine on a map if there were no countries labeled. But certainly the new line of Ukraine, most people are not going to, it's not going to impact any of your lives. And then the second part, and the one that you want to avoid because it could impact our lives, is how do we ensure that there isn't in some way an additional aspect coming where we have another invasion and we basically create a situation where there are perpetual wars taking place in Europe between Ukraine and Russia that could potentially spiral into something bigger. All those questions, very important, very significant. We'll continue to break it down. I will dive in and see what the absolute latest from the Oval Office is. In the meantime, last night, I went out to dinner with our friend Ben, who runs Good Ranchers, and they are exploding. The quality of their company is so phenomenal that they are exploding with orders. You guys have been signing up like crazy. He wanted me to say thank you for all the support that this audience has shown to his company. He loves you guys, and he wants to create an even bigger, better American company focused on good old American beef, chicken, and all of the seafood out there as well, coming directly to your home. He said something interesting. His wife was there with him at dinner too, and it's probably not a surprise, but a lot of the women in your lives are the ones that actually provide the most healthy food in the homes. They're the ones taking care. Ben's got 4. He and his wife, they have 4 kids under the age of 7, I believe. I've got 3. A lot of you have multiple kids, grandkids out there that you're trying to take care of. He said women, they get it. They are aware of how important it is to have healthy food, no added hormones, no seed oils, all coming directly from American food producers. Great tasting beef, chicken, and salmon, all sent straight to your home at an incredibly affordable price. And he said, man, women are hearing our call and they are signing up like crazy. So sometimes some of the men out there, you're not as on the ball. Maybe have these conversations with your wives, with your girlfriends, and get hooked up as well. Maybe you can blow everybody away by doing something really smart for your household and being incredibly healthy. My wife's going to live to be 120. I'm not sure how many years I got left. I'm sure that it's not 70. But she's going to live to be for 120 because she eats so well and eats so healthy, and our family does as well because we have Good Ranchers. You can save $25 off your purchase sent right to your home when you use my name, Clay. Go check it out right now. Trust me, it's phenomenal. GoodRanchers.com, my name, Clay, for $25 off when you make your first purchase. That is GoodRanchers.com. Trust me and go check this out. My name, Clay. Great American company, great American food, organic, healthy, from your own great American farm. Whether it's chicken, whether it's beef, whether it is seafood, you're going to love it. GoodRanchers.com. My name, Clay, for $25 off. That's GoodRanchers.com.